Alright guys, and welcome back to the Saints View, the channel for something content for our match preview and predicted lineup video ahead of Southampton's trip to the Hawthorns to take on West Bromwich Albion tomorrow night. Big game, I think more so for West Brom. We'll have to see whether Saints take it as seriously as their FA Cup semi-final to come next week. But before we get into it, do make sure you've hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet already, with your notifications turned on. You're following us on our socials, and as always, this video is kindly sponsored by the guys over at Pitch Sport. Make sure you downloaded their app if you haven't yet already. Link is in the description. Right, before we get into West Brom, let's talk about the last game, Burnley, the 3-2 win. Impressive, very impressed with that. Not necessarily the fact that we went 2-0 down around half an hour in, but the way we reacted to that. You know, we've talked a lot this season about how we've taken up winning positions and thrown points away. This was the complete opposite. It was our first comeback from 2-0 down to win since 2015, so 6 years since 2016, 5 years, that Liverpool game. And yeah, like I said, I was very impressed. I thought we should have gone on to score more goals. As soon as we went 2-0 down, the response changed. You know, we hadn't started well at all. We played really poorly. It kind of looked like the second half against Brighton a little bit, where we just didn't look like we had any sort of interest, or we didn't really look like we knew what we were doing. But I think we were lucky in the sense that we responded very early with the consolation goal with Armstrong, you know, straight after Vidra's goal. But then we showed our individual quality through Ings, who was back in the side, and that goal is one of his best for Saints. It's sensational. He shows pace to beat me, then he dummies Tarkowski, and it's a cool finish past Pope to equalise before half time. So very entertaining first half, and then in the second, Burnley had a little bit of a strong start, but all in all, I felt like it was our half. You know, we should have gone and scored more goals. In the end, Redmond did find the back of the net, but we had chances to seal it. Adams was 1-on-1. I think I can't remember who else had chances, but I remember there being chances to win it 4 or 5-2. But in the end, look, we've won the game. It's an important 3 points. We're on 36 now. I'd like to say that survival's pretty much confirmed, and obviously if we beat West Brom on Monday night, 39 points, I'd be very confident to say that survival is completely confirmed, and we can focus on the final handful of games without having to look behind us, let's say, and we can maybe focus on finishing as high as possible, because for me, I think the top half is probably out of reach, but I'd say top 12 and get into the FA Cup semi-final. It's not the worst season in the world, so we'll obviously have to see. But that game I just mentioned, the semi-final, I'd like to think that there might be a little bit of rotation just to keep some key players who have been prone to injuries this season fresh for the semi-final, because we absolutely must play our strongest 11. You know, when I think of players like that, I'm thinking Danny Ings, I'm thinking Walker Peters, I'm thinking maybe Diallo, maybe Redmond, because at the moment you'd have to say Redmond's probably our most informed winger. Armstrong is in that category as well, in terms of necessarily can't really play 2 games in a week with ease. So we'll obviously have to see, but for me, I think it's going to be a mix of strong and maybe bench players given an opportunity. And obviously we'll talk about the predicted lineup in a minute, but let's talk about West Brom, because what a result they had last weekend going into this one, a 5-2 win away at Chelsea. Thomas Tuchel hadn't seen his Chelsea side concede at home up until that point, and then they conceded 5, albeit Chelsea did have 10 men, but West Brom turned it on. You know, Callum Robson got a couple, Matis Pereira got a couple, Diagne scored as well. I mean, a very, very impressive performance as well. And they're going to have to take confidence from that, because their priority now is to pick up as many points as possible and try and give themselves a shout of staying up in the Premier League. If you ask me, I don't think they're staying up. I think it'd be an absolute miracle if they can stay up, because at the moment, as I'm recording this, they're 11 points off safety. I'd be saying at least 4 wins probably to catch up, maybe a couple of results to go their way as well elsewhere to have any sort of a shot. You know, there's been talk about Sam Allardyce's record with no relegations all season, but I think this task was just a little bit too much for him this time around. But look, they've got a couple of players, like I just said, that can cause us problems. I think Matis Pereira is probably the highlight. I think he's a great player. I'd love him at Saints if West Brom were to go down. But you know, it's one of those games where traditionally Saints do well. West Brom, we've won our last 3 trips to the Hawthorns. We beat them at home pretty comfortably 2-0 back in, was it was September, wasn't it, at the start of the season, or early October. Traditionally Saints do well against West Brom. Whether that's going to be the case on Monday, we'll have to see. But generally speaking, I would say I'm confident that we can come away with some sort of result. It just depends on how West Brom play and what sort of side we start. Because if it's the side that started against Burnley last week, I'd be saying we'd pick up at least a point from this one. Even though West Brom got a great result last week, I just feel like we've got enough quality in that side to go and get at least a point, even though we're still not in the greatest of form. But for me, I want to see the semi-final prioritised. I do feel like if we win this game, then survival's completely confirmed. But for me, I'm still not worried about relegation now that we beat Burnley and we're on 36 points with a handful of games still to go. But let's get on to the predicted lineup, because I think it's going to be an interesting one. But in goal, I think it'll be Fraser Forster, no doubt about that. He is the number one at the moment. Left back, I think we're going to see Ryan Bertrand, probably because it's just a lack of options, really. And there was talk of Walker Peters not being, or having a little bit of a doubt, or being a doubt for the game. And because of that, I don't think he'll play. I think Jack Stevens will slot in there. And then I think we might see one of the two, of Yannick Vestergaard or Jan Bednarek, drop out for Mohamed Salisu. I personally like to see Bednarek drop out. He's played so much football this season. And against Burnley, he didn't have a good game. I think he needs a rest before the semi-final. So I'd like to see Vestergaard and Salisu next to each other in the middle. Whether Ralph will go with that, we'll obviously have to see, but that's what I think might be the case. And then in the middle, I think we are going to see a normal partnership of Ward-Prowse and Diallo. I don't think playing 2 games in the space of 6 or 7 days is that big a deal for Diallo. Obviously, with Ward-Prowse, he hasn't missed a single minute of Premier League football. And then on the right, I think we're going to see Minamino. He didn't play against Burnley. I think because he's cup tied, he definitely will start this one. And then on the left, I think we're going to see Gineppo with a thought process of maybe Redmond up front, or even rested ahead of the semi-final. And the same with Armstrong. I think with him, it's a difficult one, playing 2 games in a week for 90 minutes as well. We're going to need him for the semi-final. And then up front, I think definitely we're going to see Shea Adams. And then maybe Nathan Teller. I think that would be a good shout. Only because Nathan, again, I don't think he played much. No, he didn't play against Burnley, did he? I don't think he came on. And if so, yeah, obviously there have been a couple of performances of late where he's been sensational, best player on the pitch. Sheffield United springs to mind. His first half against Leeds as well. So for me, I think he deserves an opportunity. This is a good game to start him in. As for Shea, he's in good form. He tends to do well when it comes to playing 2 games in a week. I think he'd be fine to start this one and the semi-final. And I do think we should be starting him in the semi-final. We'll obviously have to see. But for me, that's kind of what I'm thinking Ralph might go for. I think it's a difficult one to predict, to be honest. It just depends how much he wants to prioritise this game, because obviously we've got that semi-final as well to come on the Sunday. But for me, I'm going to go for a draw in this one. I'm confident we'll come away with a result. But I feel like maybe West Brom might want it a little bit more. We've got more quality, that's for sure. But again, like I said, it's about who starts. And I think the semi-final is going to be in the back of the players' minds. But I'm going to go for 1-1. And yeah, we'll have to see. To be honest, I'm not too fussed about this game. But like I said, I think we've got the quality to win the game pretty comfortably if we show up. But that is it for the video. If you have enjoyed it, leave it a like and subscribe if you haven't yet already. Let me know your thoughts on the game in the comment section below. What are your score predictions and who would you like to see start? Would you like to see a rotated side with the semi-final in mind on Sunday? Make sure to follow us on our socials as well, and we'll see you after the game for our match review, hopefully after a big 3 points. Take it easy, guys.